Welcome to the 50 Days of Evolution podcast.
Number 1.
And first 50 Days Evolution podcast, also our first ever podcast.
A legendary moment happening.
Yeah, it's cool. And
Cashew's first podcast. We were hoping he'd be in the frame, but didn't know it was going to be so soon.
come on, Cashew. Is he good?
He's so desperate.
Come on, man.
Lay down.
Yeah, so I'm really thankful to be doing this with you. Shout out to Key, our creative director, who's going to be producing this. Being in discussion on the interwebs has been a dream of mine and something that Lindsay and I have been called to do for a long time. So it's surreal that this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Evolution is what we're up to, and evolution is what we're going to be talking about this first episode. So Gary gets right to it with chapter 1, evolution. And why did he start the book off talking about evolution to you?
Yeah, I think I'm sure there's phrases I could use about, to know where we're going, we have to know where we've been. And I think starting the book with evolution gives us an ability to have the conversation about how have we been evolving in the past, so that he could plant this, not necessarily new direction, but highlight, here's how we're evolving now. And one of the, maybe my favorite theme of the whole entire book is that we're all going there, and it's going to take some time, and we get to choose the speed at which we evolve. And yeah, so I think he started it with evolution so that he could talk first about how we've done it in the past.
Yeah. And I feel like he established, like right off the rip, I feel like he established that he is going to talk about like what has been true at its highest point and not spend time on the whys. And he also introduces where the journey of the book is going to go. And in that first chapter, I get him free from spending so much time like in the salesmanship, and he's more and I think the whole of this book, and I feel it in that the first chapter, is like, I'm going to talk about the big picture of where humanity is going. I'm going to talk about the big picture of how evolution based upon like who can survive in their body the longest is no longer the highest aim. And he says like the major points that he feels why that's like relevant, without being in like, let me spend however many pages trying to convince you of that. And it's a strong foundation.
Yeah, while still dropping enough little nuggets along the way that I, as the reader, could get in agreement with, like, oh yeah, parts of my personality have been looking to attain power through acquiring more material possessions, through acquiring more perceived external power. And like enough of that I was able to see myself in the parts of me that have been and are in the game of external power still.
Yeah, me too. Because I a few pages in, and I love, every time I read this book, it's like it hits different because I'm different. And this time, a few pages in, I'm like, oh, I can feel within me. I can choose aligning to the parts of myself that want to survive or be seen as important. I can align to the parts of myself that want money, that want possessions. Or I can align to a part of myself that wants love, that wants more. a part of myself that's actually not concerned about surviving. And then like he establishes this view on evolution, which I'm going to read in a second a couple of excerpts from Evolution, the first chapter. He establishes early on that like we can come from that point of multisensory, or we can come from the point of the five sensory, which is where we've been, with the five sensory peak being survival and the multi-sensory peak being evolution. Mm-hmm. And I can feel those two different, I guess I'll call them like smaller self and bigger mm-hmm. self, or like I can feel that there's a part of me that like the peak of the mountain, like the most important thing could be survival, and that's in like my five senses. Yeah. And then there's a part of me that's like that wants more.
Yeah. And it's not just the physical survival. Like I get the sense in my life right now, I have a place to live. I'm going to be fed. I'm going to eat good. I'm not in any immediate threat or danger in my life. And the external power survival game, like I just experienced this earlier with apologizing to you, which I'll share that story. It's like also the survival of the ego. It's the survival of the parts of the external power that are like, it's really fear and anger and control and
acceptance, being right, being liked.
Yeah, which is like control. It's like
perceived in a certain way.
It's gonna go the way I originally, or like my ego originally thought it should go. Like that. Okay, that's how it has to go now. And this part of my external power is finding ways to exert that on the world. And so the example from earlier today when I thought this podcast was starting 30 minutes before it was scheduled to. And
well, the whole story is you thought it was starting an hour early. So first you thought you were late.
Yeah. And then I was wrong about that. But then I was sure I was right that it was starting 30 minutes later than I originally thought. And anyway, like to get down to it and realize I had nagged you about its start time. Experiencing that moment of like, oh, I mean, as simple as what we teach our daughter. It's like, okay, you were in the wrong. You expressed yourself in a way that wasn't love. Now apologize. And I could feel that part of me that's like, I don't want to apologize, as if doing that, I lose something. I've lost some power. And
Thanks for apologizing.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, so for the listeners, like, can you describe how you expressed your thinking the podcast started? You're thinking that I was late to the podcast. How'd that look?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think they need to know, but while we're here, it looked like opening the door and like tapping my foot. You were in the other practice space and
training some of our team members.
Yeah. We have this phrase that's from Gary's second book, like about the players getting off the bench. He talks about the parts of our personality that are splintered, and he brings that up in this book, and how like the ego, when it gets involved, will like pull players off of the bench that we don't need, like defensiveness or anger or judgment or all that. And I'm having some players trying to stand up right now. I'm coaching them back down, but yeah. It was a cool experience, and like I really get the sense in my own, and from that like micro, I get the sense that every time I risk, there's really nothing to lose, but like I risk losing something, because if part of my psyche is telling me if I apologize, if I choose love, if I choose generosity, if I choose acceptance, I'm going to lose something. Like I really get the sense that the more I'm willing to risk losing something in my life, the more I'm going to evolve.
And so here's an excerpt from the first chapter.
Okay.
It is now clear that the insecurity which underlies the perception of power as external cannot be healed by the accumulation of external power. And to compare external power to authentic power, Gary defines authentic power as authentic power is a power that loves life in every form that it appears, a power that does not judge what it encounters, a power that perceives meaningfulness and purpose in the smallest details upon the earth. Whereas, end quote, whereas, my words, external power is based upon things like having my point of view validated, having the way I want my life to go that way, being acknowledged in the hierarchy of my job, my career, society, being the dominant person in my household, being the dominant person in my friend circle, competition, money, possessions, the accumulation of resources in any way on the earth, right? And so I think about your example whenever you lovingly, not lovingly, busted into the training, was like, hey, hey, Chris, you're running later or whatever. There was a part of you that saw this whole thing going down. There was like a greater self, an observer self, the awareness, whatever, that saw how you were behaving and saw what even your resistance that you were having to the choice of like getting clear. And I think what Gary brings to light is like that part of you is real. The part of you that sees the personality's wants and the personality's needs. And you and I and the people listening to this can live from that place and therefore have choice over how the learnings of the personality and the preferences of the personality have choice over. We can have choice over how we respond, and we also can choose the perspective that we take upon something happening that I don't like or something not going as to plan. And I think that one of Gary's core points that he lands in the evolution chapter is that now operating from that space will serve our evolution more than unconsciously evolving within wants and needs and desires of the personality and having or not having what we want and being able to dominate or being dominated by. And I think that's one of the central things that he lands early.
Yeah. So when you say operating from that space in the space of authentic power, will you describe for yourself what that feels like when you're operating from authentic power?
So yeah, I will. And I want to look at this definition of authentic power again. A power that loves life in every form that it appears. A power that does not judge what it encounters. A power that perceives meaningfulness and purpose in the smallest details upon the earth.
It's the last sentence for me.
Yeah, for me, operating in authentic power means rooting the space from which I'm living in that part of myself that can be with, this is not going the way I want it to go. Lindsay's not behaving the way I want her to behave.
Never.
I see myself in the longing for more money. I see myself in the longing for new instruments. I see myself irritated by how Sky's behaving, or Cashew yanking on the leash while we're walking because he sees a squirrel. And the authentic power is me rooting this experience that I'm having in being with all of that and understanding that I don't need to control the what's happening. I can align to the learning that's coming from each and every experience. I can align with like, there is a perfect and compassionate nature of my whole experience. And like, if this is happening, there's something for me to learn from it, and to choose the path of learning and evolution. Here it goes. I can choose the path of learning, evolution, love, and understanding when I'm there. However, when I'm in control, competition, those things set my consciousness at the physical level. It keeps me like, I'm going to be in the physical and learn what there is from this physical level. Like, I am, like, the whole of me is the personality. The whole of me is what I want. Or I can have myself in this space, this relaxed space that's not scared and fearful. That's like, oh yeah, whatever goes on with my Chris is whatever he wants, whatever he likes, whatever he's annoyed by, that's cool. And there's everything that happens there, I can learn from it and expand myself to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's like, so I think in this chapter, what Gary is establishing and what I resonate with is like, the time in our evolution as a collective humankind has come where evolving means taking this path of understanding that even my personality is a makeup of things on a denser, on a physical level. Like, even my personality is not me. The words I use, the things I'm drawn to, the preferences I have, like, you know, being left-handed, or, you know, whatever, like, be like my race, the way I talk, the way all these things that make up like a ego construct and an identity construct of I.
Yeah.
Like, one thing I take away is like, even the path of like self-improvement, like improve yourself and go be successful in the world and build whatever life you think is the life to build. Like, that's we're at a point where aiming for that is no longer the highest aim. And we're becoming aware, as we become aware of like love and compassion and intuition, because these things connect us to something that has no conditions.
And I think it's important to discern in what you just said. For like myself, I want to hear it said, and for the listeners, it's like the self-improvement part is it goes back to external and authentic power. It's like me improving myself. That can happen from either category. Yeah. I can improve from striving for external power. I can go work out because I want to be the sexiest person in the room at all times so that I can perceive that I have the most control over the room. Or I can, you know, insert any other example of ways I can, quote, improve. And, or like in authentic power and the development of intuition and deep listening, I can hear the things that are for me to do. And it could be the exact same thing. It's, go work out, like go move your body, or drink more water, or go have that conversation with that person right now. All those things that are in the self-improvement category. Like, I've done something better for myself, but the route of which I moved was different. Intuition versus construct of who I can be on the earth.
Thanks for bringing that to the forefront, because, like, yes, strive for greatness. Strive for love. Strive for whatever your values are. And Gary boils it down to intention. And then he also describes how that, like, and this is spoiler alert, it's coming in the next chapter.
Yeah.
The next chapter, he goes in on the personality is illuminated through the soul. So if your, as you just said, if your sole intention, and we'll use the exercise example because I think that's so relevant, if your intention of exercising is to honor this body that you've been gifted, you honor the experience of being human by taking care of your body, pushing its limits through curiosity, nourishing it, you're still gonna get that fit body. That if the physical self was like, being fit is the thing and that's like all there is, you're still gonna get that, but the light that is infusing it is different. And I think that's intention.
Yeah.
And I have one thing on intention that I want you to elaborate on once you hear it. This is the first time of many times in the book that Gary talks about intention. The decisions you make and the actions you take upon the earth are the means by which you evolve. At each moment, you choose the intentions that will shape your experience and those things upon which you will focus your attention. These choices affect your evolutionary process. This is so for each person. If you choose unconsciously, you evolve unconsciously. If you choose consciously, you evolve consciously.
So when I hear that, and in what we've been talking about, like, well, what I'm reminded of in this conversation is the depth and intricacy of what it is to be human, and how I wish at times, I don't know, I'm like hesitant to say that because I'm like casting the wish out into the universe, but like having a this is my intention or that was my intention doesn't always feel real in my life. Like my intentions, both we'll say authentic power related and external power related, can run together and intertwine and dance together.
There's
and
more than one intention.
Yes. I can.
Your own the galaxy that is Lindsay.
Yes.
It's more than one thing.
And sometimes they're at battling.
Facts.
I can be in one yoga class, and in half of Upward Facing Dog, my intention is freedom and vitality. And in the other half, on the same inhale, my intention is to look like the most capable yoga student in the room. And it happens like that.
And wow. Yeah. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. Yeah. I can relate to that. And I think like first is like, you read Seed of the Soul chapter 1 and you're getting all motivated. Like, okay, I'm about to be multi-sensory. Like I'm all multi-sensory. When you notice, when I'm in the yoga class or I'm training, whatever, and I notice, let's call it the 5 sensory or the external power intention come out. Like I want to look good so people think I'm strong and cool and think he's that dude. When I see that, if I see that and then judge that, that's a movement further away from the multi-sensory thing that we're talking about. It's really just like, oh yeah, I see that going on. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. That's one phenomena going on of me.
Yeah. Yeah, and Gary talks about, I don't remember if it's chapter 1 or it's later in the book, but he talks about conscious and unconscious intentions. And like both being seeds we plant, like whether we're aware, whether I'm present of what my internal dialogue is at any given moment, I'm still planting those seeds. And so the evolutionary process being this like the strongest intention is going to win. Mm-hmm. And that strongest intention, like the best I can do right now is aim for energizing the intention of authentic power.
Sure.
Because I'm really not sure, like how strong. I'm really not sure how strong the intention for external power is. Like, I feel it. And I shove it down sometimes. Like, no, that's not me. You don't want.
I like how you said energize. I like how you said it. Then I forgot what you said. you want it to energize the multisensory experience. Like, I think energizing what we want more of.
Yeah.
Like any, the dominant vibration is going to win versus like fighting the five sensory self or fighting the ego, because that's going to also energize the ego or the five sensory self. So
it's the theory of you fill space in the universe. Like if I want, it's like pulling stuff out. Oh, I'm going to stop eating sugary foods. Well, now you've got a void, and you're just going to go back to whatever the dominant pattern is, unless you're putting into place something else. So yeah, it's like I want to infuse and energize the intention of authentic power, because me just saying, well, I'm done being in the external power. Well,
yeah.
Okay, how well is that working?
And we're talking about some of the splintered psyche that Gary talks about. And I love it because when we talk about there's multiple intentions that can be going on at any moment. There's multiple desires that can happen. Gary touches on this, and I've got a quote from Evolution about the splintered psyche. He says there is no difference between the agony of a splintered soul and the agony of a splintered nation.
Yeah.
And within that context, Gary is talking about how you just described, and I just described, like within ourselves, there's these parts of us that are about love, and there's these parts of us that are about recognition. See me as better than others. See me as rising above. See me as cool. See me as whatever. There's splintered intentions. There's forces that are working for separate things. Gary broadens that out, that as we get to know our inner universe, that is exactly what is happening on the planet.
Yeah.
And so I think that's amazing, and it feels true. So much there. It feels true.
Yeah. Yeah, so much, because I actually, for whatever reason, this season of my life being like the past 6 months, I think about this concept all the time. Like I think, and I'm it's the first time in my life I've been willing to look at, oh, what I'm seeing outside of me is what's in me. So it's really like taking some of the helium out of the judgment balloon, because I can't like float it out there and be like, that's you. It's also been one of my favorite learnings recently on meditation, and why meditation is an act of service to the whole world. It's like when I'm willing to go in my inner world and be with the darkness, be with the fear, the anger, the hate, the separation, the greed, and do that work. Well, it goes both ways. Like I impact the whole.
Yeah.
And when things on the external change, that's just a representation of the collective internal changing.
And there's the spiritual teaching that is across all the religions. You want to change the world, change yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to, you want something to be different out there, go in here.
Yeah. I have a quick anecdote I want to share on that. This week, we had a person come to Kali Yoga Center who was expressing anger, and who, like, without me being a professional to be able to diagnose someone's mental well-being at that time, was having some disconnection with what seemed to me as reality. And that was expressing itself in an aggressiveness and an anger, and to the point where I had to ask him to leave the class. And it was a scary experience for me to ask this man to leave the class. He'd been disruptive in it, and I got the sense, okay, this is my role right now. This is my growth. And anyway, so the day goes on. Everything's whole and complete. Everyone's fine. I find myself daydreaming about the interaction, about his anger, about his expressions of violence. And as I'm doing that, I'm also, and this took me a while to see, I started daydreaming about how it would have, thanks, Key, how it could have gone differently. And I'm playing out scenes where it didn't go well. You and me have talked about this before with me catastrophizing things. It's like, so I was like, in my head, I'm like talking about how the violence of this person was not acceptable, was not okay, was not appropriate for the scenario we're in, while I'm drumming up in my internal world violence that maybe, I mean, not maybe, rivals what he brought to the reality. Yeah. And so I saw in that moment, like, oh, I'm here judging how this person is, the anger I saw there, the violence I saw there. And oh my gosh, I've just spent however long or however many instances through that one day sitting in, conjuring up, being in a violent experience. Like, it's me.
Yeah. One thing that whenever I'm in conversation about what somebody is doing wrong, right? Or what like bringing to light a negative experience and articulating it in conversation with you or someone else. And like, I'll talk about when I'm in love, I can talk about the behavior they're doing and come from a place of non-judgment. And I can even see how like a lot of times I'll say, because I'm in a practice of like, how do I navigate these? I see that a person is coming from hostility or fear, and not bypass the truth of what happened in my experience and communicate that to another person without making the conversation about judging the other person. And I see how sometimes if I'll say, okay, this person was angry or this person was freaking out about this, and yeah, I know that part of myself. Sometimes I can even see how when I say that thing, like the listener can even be like, oh no, but that's different. Oh
yeah,
no,
yeah,
but that's
yeah.
No, it's worse because he shouldn't have been in here acting that way, and that just I was just reminded, like, no, it's not. Like it's not any different. It's just not any different at all.
Yeah, well, to just drop this in real quick, Gary talks about in Spiritual Partnership, one of his other books, how what you just described, that's the energetic agreement of friends, is to make you feel better, to coddle you, to divert you from looking at the things that might have you truly look at your internal world. And like spiritual partnership being the relationships we have, like intimate or not, in the sense of it doesn't have to be someone you're married to, dedicated to, but like someone who is sitting in your presence and part of their soul guidance tells them to direct you to seeing the parts of you that are still here to evolve. And like in that example, it's like, yes, like having someone in front of you who instead of, and I want to be this person more often in front of the people I'm with, like instead of being, instead of being like, oh yeah, no, that's not the same. They're on some bullshit. Yeah. I mean, that was just ridiculous. It's like, well, you too.
Yeah.
And
it's intense.
Yeah.
It's intense to be in love. It's intense to be in love with life. And I think like Gary is making an ask that seriously, when you hear that someone was murdered and you feel that flash of rage come through you, I can't believe they would do that. How could they? Allow yourself to be in the observation that, oh, here's part of that energy that caused them to take that action. Like what I'm feeling right now is the essence of that.
Yeah.
And so I think like Evolution chapter 1, he sets a beautiful foundation for, we're going to look at these things that come through the personality and see how we can be in a personality in the human experience and accept things like anger, resentment, jealousy. It's not like make those not happen. It's like respond to them differently. Evolve consciously versus evolve unconsciously.
Another main theme that he hits in chapter 1 is the earth as Earth School, and the offering up that the only reason any of us are incarnated into a human vessel right now is because there's work to do. There's healing to be had. There's evolution to take place. And that's not new to Gary to say that. There's many world religions and philosophies and teachings that will say the same thing of like, well, yeah, if you've learned it all, you're not here in this physical experience anymore. Like you've ascended.
Yeah. And I want like in order to read this book and take value from it, there are in the first 16 or 17 pages, there are some decisions that the reader has to make. Are you, as the reader, not willing to consider that everything in your life has meaning and purpose?
Yeah.
And like if you're not willing to consider that, then I can imagine you're not going to go forth reading the book. And even if you're willing to consider that, like the events of your life hold meaning and purpose, and there's a point to everything that's happening to you in every single moment. I think like a willingness to consider that in the greater context is going to open you up to communicating with the universe as it's communicating back to you in every single moment of your life. However, I think that's what will open you to like digesting some of the concepts of chapter 1. So
what I just heard and what you just said too was like, are you willing to lay down the idea that you are victimized by your life experiences, by the circumstances of your life? And I think that's a huge question the reader, and myself included, needed to come to terms with in the evolution chapter through the framing of everything that's happening is a compassionate universe committed to your growth and evolution. Cashew has fallen asleep.
As Cashew starts snoring, I think that's a good time to end episode 1 on evolution. So, we'll see y'all next time. Love.
See ya.